painted so many times. So for this next one I'm going to make a pretty rose design, as we haven't done a rose yet. So I'm going to use an orangey background. This is just a homemade rainbow. So a bit orangey, just tap that in. I didn't get much of the lighter colour. Pull that down there, and a little bit along there. So you can use rainbow cakes and just use like different ends, and that's the beauty of using a rounded sponge rather than a flat sponge. You're not committed to all the colours. You can kind of lay them down wherever you want to put them without having to use all of the colours at the same, at once, if you don't want to. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to first of all do a little bit of a design on Heidi's eyelid with some sangria, which is a GTX. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of an orangey colour just to lighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to create a sort of close your eyes, sort of a crisscross lacy. So don't open your eye for a minute. I'm just pulling some diagonal bits down so I can make a kind of a lacy pattern. You could use a stencil, but I'm just going to crisscross this just as another sort of idea that you can use or adapt however you want, but it just gives a nice little texture. As I say, you could use a stencil. Don't open your eyes for a sec. Could use a stencil, but sometimes you haven't got the stencil you want, and it's good to be able to make things as you paint as well. I'm just putting some little dots in my lacy design with my number 5 round. Okay, let me just zoom that in so you can see what I've actually done. So just a little crisscross design there on the eyelid. So just keep your eyes closed for a sec while that dries. Won't take a minute. And then I'm taking a Face Paints Australia Lily Pilly. This one is very good because I'm going to use a smaller brush. I may use slightly bigger, I'm not sure. I'm actually going to use a 1/2 inch, actually. A 1/2 inch angle brush. The one I've used all along, which is a Verona. And this rainbow one stroke has got slightly different lighter edges. So you've got like slightly yellower and slightly peachier with a deep colour in the middle, which means you can just use half and pick up all the colours on a smaller brush, which is nice when you want to do a smaller rose and you don't, usually your one strokes have a dark colour and then a light colour and then a dark colour right at the bottom, which means on a smaller brush you don't actually get to pick those colours up. So it's quite nice to have some ones like this where you can use a smaller brush and get the whole range of colour, because they're thinner stripes in the one stroke. Okay, so I'm going to put a rose on this bit here because this is my largest area. So I'm going to just start from the centre and pull round. And I did a lesson on this before, that I always start from the centre because it keeps your white edge or lighter edge clean, because you're not dragging it over dark colours. Whereas if you start from the outside, you will inevitably be pulling your colours your lighter colour over a darker colour. So just going to go back in and do a few little ones in between. So I've got a lovely detailed rose there. So there is my rose. I'm going to do another little bud sort of shape at the top. So I'm going to carry that. So I'm going to bring one over the top and do one here. So I will point the rose that way this time and pull around and round. There. So I've got little tiny, much smaller, it's not really a bud, but it's much smaller. And then I will put an actual little bud at the bottom. And then we'll do our leaves. So this, just a little bud at the bottom. Very nice. While I'm there, I'm going to pull down a little bit in here. And sometimes you just have to sort of just press your brush to get those little shapes in the corner of the eye. So that looks very nice. And now I'm going to take my my green 1 stroke, whoops, here, and I'm just kind of got an olive green in the middle, and I've got a dark edge on my long brush edge, and I will be pulling some little leaves, so I'll just put one in that direction so it brings the design round, and I'll put one under here and here, there, and then wrap a little leaf. So I'm just going to fit them in wherever they need to be. So like that so far, and then I'm going to do a slightly bigger one coming down, and then pull that one that way. Let's have a look. How are we doing? Yeah, that's nice. And then we'll just bring the design around with some little, might actually just make some little lighter edged ones, just using the other side of my angle brush, just to frame the whole thing. There we go. So that is nicely framed. Let me just tilt the camera down slightly. There we go. So all those roses are nicely framed like that. I'm going to layer up and get a white-edged leaf as well, and just put another layer of leaves on top, this time with a white edge, just to show the difference. And it just makes a nice contrast using both of those colours. So there we go. Now line work. Let's have some line work. I'm going to use my liner brush this time, and I shall use the centre of this 1 stroke just so that we've got the same. So this is my liner brush from the face painting shop, and it is just called a large liner. But any liner really will do. You don't have to buy every brush. Use what you have. Practice with what you have. So just And follow these little flicks. And we're just shaping everything. So nice flicky line work. I'm going to get a bit of white as well, because I think or maybe I'll just use the lighter side of the one stroke, which is slightly yellowy, creamier thing than pure white. Maybe that will look nice. So I've just loaded my brush with a creamy colour from the other side, and I'm just going in between what we've already done. And I might even just highlight some of that lace, just one side. Just because I can. So that's that. And then we need some, I'm going to do some little flowers as well, or just dots. I'm trying to decide. I think I'm going to use, haven't used this brush yet. This is my small little petal brush. It is a Face Painting Shop mini flower brush. And again, this time I'm not going to use white. I'm going to use the edge of this one stroke just to keep things all in the same colour palette, and then pick up the centre for double dipping. So I've got that, and then pick that up, and then we will put some little flowers again on the line endings, just to make them tidy, and pull down around so they kind of cascade. And you can have some little ones on the ends of your lines as well. So I'm just kind of working my way. There. So that's just really layered that up. Next I'm going to get my round brush. And again, as we did on one of the other designs, I'm going to do a few dots on the lines. Not every one. I'm just picking some, quite like this kind of beady effect on the lines. As you can see, it just makes the lines a bit more interesting. And then I'm going to put some little dot fillers with this brush again. So I'm going to just fill up some of that space. I'm going to go over my dots on there. There we go. And just there. So chin up a little bit. There, that's nice. And I think we might just finish off with a totally contrasting colour. Where's my little palette? Here it is. So totally contrasted. We've got all oranges and greens and stuff there. So I'm going to go for a teal, I think. Let's see how that works. It's a very light teal, more of a sort of a peppermint sort of colour. And just add some tiny little filling dots with this pepperminty colour, just to totally mix things up. There. You could go on all day. But that is a very detailed, lovely rose eye design. Obviously you don't have to do quite so big if you don't want to, but I really like that. It's still very tight, very layered, and very, full of depth and detail. So there's that. Now, as it's the last one, I can put glitter on. Okay, so I've got some gold glitter here, and I'm just going to put some glitter on my rose. I'm kind of following the lines of the petals just to give it that little extra sparkle. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it is there. And then with this you can go over your little dots, your little beads on the line work with little tiny glittery dots, just to make it even more special. So I'll go around this little rose as well, and this one there. There, can you see the lines? I don't know if you can see it, maybe the photo at the end will show it better, but I've just literally gone around the petals to just make it a little bit more sparkly. So that is that. Obviously you can add all sorts of glitters and things, little gems or spots, little dots of gems, anything you'd like, but that is it for that one. Very nice. Thank you. Bye.